Are you ready for an open discussion with the best of the best and the best of what's next? Welcome to the Tony DiUrso Show. Join in on a great conversation today with some of the world's great influencers as they showcase great advice and techniques that made them the game changers they are today. Now, here's Tony DiUrso.
Welcome. Thanks for hanging out with us today. We're going to chat with someone at the top of their category and a lead entrepreneur. We're going to talk about the 6 habits of success with Laura DiBenedetto. Now, we're all listening here today because we want to learn more about success and what it takes to get there. We want to learn from people who make it to the top of their categories. That is what we all want, right? Now, what happens when you achieve so much success that, well, something happens and the bottom drops out? Perhaps you become depressed, disillusioned, throw in the towel. There was a time when I had revenue in the 7 digits in my marketing company, and then the bottom fell out with yet another federal regulation and mandate. That happened 4 times in 7 years. I got tired of that. I began podcasting, and that had serious issues after the first year. And again, I had to rebuild or do something else. Now, you've heard many of my guests with similar stories, and Laura has been through this too. And while we're at it, this is all about helping you and your friends turn your vision into reality. We want to help you get very successful at dealing with and beating setbacks and failures. Meet Laura DiBenedetto. She started a successful marketing business at 19, and in some 20 years or less, she accumulated 18 awards, 2 Torch Awards, and the 40 Under 40 Award at age 23. How impressive is that? She's had multiple appearances on Fox News. She's a speaker. She's a TEDx speaker. She leads workshops, and she helps special interest groups as well. And I'm going to let her share the rest. Let's bring her on. Hi, Laura. Welcome to the Tony DiUrso Show.
Hi, Tony. How are you?
I'm having the best time of my life here now that I have you on the show. This is so good. I'm excited to learn the 6 habits of success. And perhaps before we get into that, Laura, can you regale us with your backstory? How did it all start for you?
Sure. So, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's going to be so fun to talk with you today and share all about how people can be successful and really dominate whatever they're trying to dominate. So, my story begins career-wise at 19 years old when I started my first company. Now, I started my first company because I really just did not want to have a typical 9-to-5 job, frankly, because I just don't fit in that world. It was very square peg, very round hole. So I left, I started my own thing, and I learned quickly a lot of things to do, a lot of things not to do. I failed a lot, I won a lot, and I steadily grew my company over the years. When I was around 32 or so, I decided to start looking at an exit strategy because I had discovered that 13 years in, which is crazy, at 32, I was already quite tired and starting to feel some physical effects of stress, burnout, and things like that. And so what I wanted to do was figure out an exit strategy. I didn't want to sell the company, really wanted to get cash flow because I was all about those Robert Kiyosaki books and cash flow quadrant. I was like, oh man, that'd be great. Passive income, that's the dream. So I figured out my exit strategy was to see if I could bring someone on to run the company for me and earn 49% of the company. So she's there now. She's kicking butt. She's doing a great job. And she fired me, which made me really happy. So when I was 37, I got fired. Probably the only time in my life I've ever been happy to be fired. And then I went off to do other things, except I didn't know what the other things were going to be. So I found myself very depressed, alone, not proud of any of my accomplishments, just feeling empty. Once I was this big, important CEO, and then now I'm CEO of the dishes, and it just, didn't feel great. So I just started wondering, if I've achieved so much and I've had so much great success and awards and all this great attention, and yet I'm still not happy, something's obviously wrong. So I started wondering, well, what is happiness really? And if you've seen my TED Talk, the question opens with, what do the happiest people have in common? This question was bugging me because I did not have whatever those people had, and I wanted some. So I went on this crazy quest and research and studies and all these awesome things that I learned to figure out what happiness really is, what success really is, where it really comes from, and how to do life a lot differently. And that's where the six habits comes from, is the product of my research, and also as a result of changing my life so dramatically from crazy workaholic who was, and I'm being very gentle when I say this, extremely grumpy, not fun to be around, and sick and having physical issues, to joyful, success magnet, and just a lot of fun to be around. So the natural impetus was to write a book because I felt so awesome, and I really wanted other people to feel awesome too.
What's amazing is that you went from a successful marketing career and you went into then being America's happiness coach. You've mentioned that a little bit. Can you take us deeper into the vision that made you go down that road? Because actually you could have done anything you wanted in the world, but you went down this route. What took you down that route and why?
Well, the thing about happiness is that it's the best kind of virus. It spreads aggressively, and I love that. I had spent so long achieving success the wrong way, through selling my health basically to the highest bidder by working hours that no human should ever work. I mean, I want to be really clear. I achieved a ton of success, a ton of it. But when I retired, it really forced me to ask the question, at what cost? And a lot of entrepreneurs do that, and they don't measure the cost to their marriages, to their families, to their children, all those missed soccer practices, to their health, to their longevity, to spending time with their aging parents, to friendships. I mean, there's such a tremendous cost that goes into entrepreneurship if we do it wrong. When I was able to discover the six habits, I discovered so much more than that. It wasn't just the six habits, it was really just a very different way of approaching life and realizing that not everything and every success you have needs to be the result of blood, sweat, and tears. Some things can actually be easy and joyful. So I started challenging all my assumptions and everything. And I just felt so darn good inside that it made me happy to share it with other people, even just in passing conversation. I mean, I'm telling you, I went from a very overworked, grumpy person to a very happy person smiling all the time. Like, I actually have the wrinkles on the side of my face now that I never had before because I smile all the time. And that's a huge change. I mean, I was the dragon lady before. I'm absolutely not proud of it, but I will vulnerably share it. I was not a great leader. And now I have the ability to be a great leader who leads with love and inspiration and, like, just all the stuff you should lead with. I get to be my best self. So wanting to share that for me felt really organic and really good. And also, the more I saw other people be happy, it just made me want to share even more, because it's like, oh my gosh, look at the advice I gave you. Like, look at this framework that I've given you to change the way you think. Like, look at all this amazing stuff and what it's doing for you. I can't believe that, you, other human, took this thing that I discovered and took your life from unhappy to, you actually believe in yourself. You do great things. You're spending time with your spouse. You're doing things that you never thought you could do. Yeah, that's kind of addictive. I'm gonna be really honest about that. Like, it's awesome to make an impact.
That is a great purpose, to spread happiness and see that the result, or the what your work is actually taking people down that same path to success as well. And is this on a premise that if a person is happy, they're successful? We've heard this banter throughout the years, be happy, you're successful, but it doesn't always happen. There's a little bit more to it. And I want to kind of understand that a little bit. We'll get into the habits in just a moment, but is there any truth or rhyme to this? Or what is that? How's that phrase?
I'm a re
Rhyme to the reason? Something like that. That if you're happy, you're successful.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. So, I mean, it's like the chicken versus the egg, right? Which comes first? Like, believe it or not, like, I mean, you can be successful without being a happy person. It's just gonna be a lot harder. So, do you need to be happy first? No. But I mean, think about it. It's even like the advice that we give people in love, right? The most successful and joyful relationships are the ones that begin with two people who love themselves and they're happy when they come into the relationship because they were happy without the relationship. The people who come into the relationship looking for that thing to make them happy, they don't find themselves as fulfilled. So the same thing can be said of work, of businesses, entrepreneurship, things like that. Like the way you enter something that informs how you exist within it. So if you enter a business as a very happy person who believes that they're capable and sees the glass half full and goes for it because they're like, yeah, I can do this. Psh, I got this, right? Like success is just easier. It's more fun. And even when you get like a little bit of setback, it's like, whatever, learning opportunity. Next. Like you're more resilient. You know what I'm saying? Like you can just do more and success becomes less of a slog and more of a joyful endeavor.
We're talking about the 6 Habits of Success with Laura DiBenedetto. And you can find her at lauradbenedetto.com. I'm going to spell that LauradIBenedetto.com. And by the way, if you raise your hand up a little bit at the very end, you can say it really a lot better, DiBenedetto.
You gotta do that.
Laura, let's drill down into the vision path here. And now the world has changed so much. And I want to talk about the skills that we need in this current age. What do we need 2022 and forward? How do we acquire them? And let's go into how, or not how, but what led you into the 6 habits and what they are. Kind of, let's open up the floor here and take this one at a time.
Sure. So let me start with how I discovered all of this. So I had been a student of personal development and like wealth teachers and happiness gurus and spiritual guides and stuff like that. I had been a student of these folks and wonderful thought leaders for a long, long time. And yet I still found myself miserable anyway, which I found a bit confusing. It's like, how is it that I've been to all these retreats and done all these things and spent all this money and I'm still a turd? I don't get it. So it just really began with a nagging curiosity and almost like a little bit of anger and resentment. I was like, I did all the things. I checked all the boxes. I should be happy. Why am I not? So um, I began by taking everything I'd ever read about. I started reading a lot more, looking for studies, looking for psychology information, and some great published works out there. And I started looking for patterns and really pulling out everything I'd known. And it's funny because I found a lot of things that happy people have in common, but I had to go deeper, right? So I found that a lot of happy people tend to exercise, they tend to eat right, they tend to have greater financial positions, they tend to live in warmer climates, blah, blah, blah. But there's also a lot of people who don't have those things and they're equally happy. So I was like, that can't be it. So what is it, right? So I wanted to get really kind of under the hood and get really curious. Well, it's not that they do those things, because if that were true, then the people who don't do those things could not be happy. It's actually why they do those things. So, someone who eats really well has a deeper appreciation and love for themselves. Someone who goes to the gym all the time, they're really committed to themselves. Someone who has really good boundaries, for example, and they don't allow toxic people around them. I mean, that's different as well. People that kind of wall themselves off from like tons and tons of bad news. These are all really strong success indicators because these people are guardians of how they treat themselves and how other things and other people and life treats them. So that was the things, and it's in 6 different areas. And it's so funny. Like I remember actually figuring this out and thinking, well, duh, these are such easy concepts. The application is what makes it hard because we have a lifetime, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of doing it the wrong way. I can tell you the right way. You're still not going to be able to change it overnight. So the 6 habits are how you treat yourself, how you feel about yourself, how you appreciate life or don't, how you show up in your life or don't, what kind of energy you allow in, and what kind of energy you put out. And there's tidy little titles for these things. They're known as kindness, acceptance, gratitude, presence, goodness, and intention. And if you can master these 6 habits, and they are habits of the mind, if you can master these 6 things, you're free. You are free. Toxic stuff, like you'll be like Teflon. It just rolls right off you. You won't get discouraged. The failure will not slow you down in the slightest. No, people won't be able to get to you and piss you off at the holiday dinner table when they want to talk about stuff you hate. Like you become impervious and you become almost superhuman when you're able to actually master these aspects of the mind where they become a default for you. And if you think about a habit, Tony, you know this. A habit is something you do unconsciously. You don't have to think about it, you just do it. It's like when you brush your teeth, you probably always use the same hand every time. Try doing it with your other hand. That's going to feel weird. But like a habit is you do the same thing over and over without consciously thinking about it. And that's what I want to get everybody to do here is to master these 6 habits of the mind to the point where you no longer have to think about them. To be fair, as a business owner who wrote a book and has a 90-day program, it's a terrible business model for you to do the things, master it, and never come back. But that is the goal. Never, ever, ever come back. Master it and be done so you can truly move on with your life. And then every book you ever read, every business adventure you do, every retreat you go on will be sweeter, more effective, and more lucrative for you.
When you first mentioned those 6 habits, Laura, I'm thinking to myself, I know those words, and they all just went right over my head. And yet I know the words, and we all in the audience, we know sugar, milk, flour, we know yeast, we know vanilla, we know chocolate, we know butter, we know those words. But I challenge anyone that's never cooked to go into the kitchen and use those ingredients and make a delicious chocolate souffle. It's just not possible. Yet we know the words. So in the same way with your 6 habits, I've heard those words. Let's take each one at a time and explain it and why is it so important.
Absolutely. By the way, I love the way you broke that down. That's where were you when I was writing my TED talk? I needed that kind of power. Oh, it was hard to write it. Glad I did. But anyway, yeah, we have heard all these words before and they seem so simple. So the first habit of kindness seems really simple, right? But kindness is how you treat yourself. That means no negative self-talk. I mean, none. Zero. So when you are truly deeply kind to yourself, you treat yourself with so much love, it's crazy. You are like on the crazy love train with yourself all the time. You look in the mirror, even if you just woke up, and ladies, if you've got mascara halfway down your face from the night before, you're gonna wake up in the morning and be like, ugh, I look like crap. No, 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 no. That is unkindness. It builds and reinforces the wrong patterns. The kindness would be, I look really good. Look at that. I slept hard. Go me, right? You have to train yourself to like reframe things. A lot of times, my coaching clients will work with me and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm kind to myself," but then we start scratching the surface a little bit, and it's like, "Oh, no, I'm not," because guess how hard they avoid doing cold calls or the things that are needed for their business, or they like, oh, I can't do that. Oh, I can't grow my company to a multi-million dollar business. Oh, I can't. Really? Is that being kind to yourself? Is that your nurturing parent? Or is that the mean schoolyard bully in your head? Because both live there. You need to fire the schoolyard bully. Bye. And you need to be the nurturing parent with yourself all the time. And this nurturing parent is going to be telling you, you look amazing today. What are you doing? Wow, you are well rested, you know, or I can do this. Hello, I can do hard things. Or I got to go to the sales meeting later and I'm intimidated. Even if it doesn't work out, wow, this is awesome. I get to do this. I get to grow today. Right? So there's just, it's a perspective shift and the way you treat yourself in every single thing you do. And it's like sometimes have the damn cake. Speaking of souffles, it is dinner time for me. Don't do this to me, Tony. But like, have the cake. Do not be unkind to yourself and deny yourself, but also don't abuse yourself the rest of the time and like, binge eat. That's not kind either. But like, give yourself kindness. Treat yourself the way you would treat someone that you love very, very much. You would do nice things for them. You would say uplifting, nurturing things. You would say things like, I believe in you. You got this. And you look great today. So that's the first habit of kindness.
We have to catch ourselves or actually be aware of ourselves because that habit is a habit. And therefore, as a habit like breathing,
Mhm.
you probably didn't pay attention to the fact yesterday that you were breathing. You're probably paying attention to the fact that you're breathing right now because I'm mentioning it. But I tell you, for the past month easy, I never thought about breathing. I just never thought about it. Yet it's a habit. We do it. The body automatically takes it. So, in terms of this negative response to ourselves or attitude or approach to ourselves, we need to be more aware of it. So when we do things, we need to be aware of our focus on ourselves and how we think. And I don't want to get into the esoteric or strange or other 1970s airy fairy vibes and all that sort of stuff, though there is some truth in some of that, but just simply how you approach yourself and how you deal with yourself, and do you criticize yourself or even criticize yourself in public. I've noticed people, they're very easy to spot when they say something what I call a bad word, when don't, can't, won't, I call those bad words. That's my level of swearing. And when I hear someone swear in a restaurant or a thing, it's like, you don't need to say bad things about yourself. And that's a habit. So how do we become more aware of that? Because it's just like breathing. We don't think about it, and the whole day will go by and we're doing the same things. So one thing, Laura, is recognizing the habit, and we got 5 more to go. But the other is being aware of it, and being aware of it as well. So are there any tricks, not tricks, or techniques to being aware of that habit?
There are. It really begins with a lot of self inquiry. So, because I'm so committed to people actually doing the work, and developing the self awareness so you can actually hear yourself and find out where it's showing up in your life. With every copy of the book is a free download where you actually have all of my coaching materials that go with it. So you can do all of the deep self inquiry and actually discover this. I mean, it's really a series of questions that you have to ask yourself and really just dig into and frankly get a little uncomfortable with. But there's beauty in discomfort, and that's where the growth is. So everyone that gets my book should absolutely grab the free resources that go with it. They just, my book is, I think, like what, 8 by 5. These fit on an 8.5 by 11. You print them out, you write it in with an actual pen on actual paper, and you sit with it without your digital devices, and you be with yourself. And that's how you learn, is you just dig, and I give you all the questions to do it with.
All right, good on that point. Let's go into habit number 2.
So habit number 2. So the first one was kindness and how you treat yourself. This one's kind of related. This one is acceptance. This one is how you feel about yourself. It's not so much the behavior and the thoughts and the words, it's actually your opinion of yourself. So sometimes people will not forgive themselves for things they've done, paths they've not taken, failures, screw ups, dumb things they've said, or like sometimes like you'll just remember something from 3rd grade at 4 a.m. because that's a great time to think about it, that you said something dumb. Like, that's not forgiving yourself. We've all done it. But the thing about acceptance is just unconditionally loving yourself exactly the way you are. No conditions. It's not, man, I really wish I was like 40 pounds lighter. Ugh, I don't love myself that much. I hate the way I look. Words like hate, that's a swear word, right? Like, we hate the way we look. Oh, yeah, that's actually you hating on yourself. That's terrible. What if you chose to love yourself with the 40 extra pounds? Are you afraid that it will lead to 60? Or could you invite the possibility that perhaps I may actually begin to lose weight the moment I love myself, because I'll stop trying to hate my way into weight loss. I can love my way into weight loss. It's totally different, but it's a great example. I mean, even with with business, it's how we look, it's how we sound, it's how we smell, it's how we do everything, and it's our opinion of our performance in life, if you will. How am I showing up today? How am I interacting with other people today? Am I making a good impression on this podcast here with Tony today? Like, I need to, as my obligation to me, to love myself so much that even if the answer is not great, in I don't look good, I don't feel good, I'm overweight, I'm doing a bad job, I still love me anyway, and I'm still worthy of that love. And that's really, really valuable. And that's the principal difference. Now, changing, it's very hard. It's interesting. This second habit I have noticed is the single most difficult of all the six habits, um, because this one is the most deeply ingrained. Unfortunately, we live in a culture that celebrates when people feel badly about themselves and actually works very hard to reinforce it through constantly selling you the next potion or goo or pill or whatever to make you thinner, taller, richer, blah, blah, blah. You're never enough the way you are. I text one of my clients all the time, like, hey, by the way, you are enough exactly the way you are. He's always like, oh, thank you so much. I need that today. We need to do that for ourselves. He's still learning, right? But we can ask for help while we're still learning, but you have to remember, like, you are enough right now. You are enough. You are enough and you are worthy of everything you've ever dreamed of. You are worthy of that hot babe you're chasing after. You're worthy of the huge 8-figure company. You're worthy of the yacht in the Pacific if you want it. Like, you are worthy of these things. And you have to deeply, deeply believe that you are enough. And this is the unconditional self love. That is acceptance. That's habit number 2.
I agree with you. That is one of the toughest things to do. Accept ourselves for what we are, how we are, the way that we are, where we are. And if we treat it like a game, Laura, it's a game. And then from there, we want to move it up to another level or another place. But it starts with accepting where you are. I guess if I actually went into a game, wherever you are in a game, you have to accept where you are. If you're playing a board game, you have to accept that this is where you're starting from. You can't start a game or a board game or whatever game you play in the ninth edition, the ninth version, or whatever the nomenclature is for game. You can't start near the end in the final round. No, you have to start at the beginning. So just like with the game, you accept where you are. Perhaps that might be a little bit of a tip on how to do it, because I do see that that's really difficult for people. I get that. And I'm glad it's the most difficult one. So whew,
Yeah.
we get this one out of the way. That's number 2. What's number 3?
Number 3 is gratitude. So, gratitude is actually the easiest place for people to start by contrast. So, gratitude is something that it's a way of life. It's not something you do, it's the way you think. And I can't emphasize that enough. It's really a lifestyle. It's the lens through which you look at all of your life, especially the things that don't go the way you want them to. There's gratitude in everything. COVID is terrible. There's things to be grateful for within that. There's, things to be grateful for within every bad situation. When someone dies, when, a company fails, a sales close, a sales pitch, it was a swing and it was the biggest opportunity of your life and you blew it. Well, guess what? There's blessings in that too. Um, an example I've mentioned on other podcasts is I've had 2 miscarriages, maybe more that I just don't know about, but I'm not a mom. And I'm grateful that it worked out the way it did. I love children. I'd still like to be a mom, but I'm grateful that I got to be pregnant for a little while. I got to be a mom for like 5 minutes. And I now have something in common with, millions and millions and millions of women across the world that I wouldn't have had. And I can also be a good friend to someone who's suffering a miscarriage, whereas I wouldn't have had that ability to be there for her before. So there's good in things and we have to look, right? But it's also good in the people that we love. Like, here's an example. How often, how often have you sat down and thought about 100 things that you love about your spouse? 100, and then texted them the entire list. That's a
I
lot.
don't think anybody's ever done that, Laura.
I have.
Maybe you have.
Well, and my husband has because he's like, damn, I look like a chump now. I better reply. Yeah, you should. But like,
I like that.
when you live in such a state of appreciation, it makes things so sweet and it changes your perspective. Because you can take a frowny face situation and be like, it's okay. I can handle this. Or something really scary, or even something great becomes even better, right? If you're living in gratitude, you'll actually celebrate your wins, unlike a lot of entrepreneurs who blast past their wins and just go on to the next one. Living in a state of continual appreciation as your default mindset helps you win more because you become a success magnet because you're busy celebrating your wins. Also, how great is my marriage? We swap 100 lists of things I love about you. It's not often, but it's often enough where it's like, oh.
I like that on gratitude. It is powerful. And again, when I first heard that word years ago, it went over my head and it sounded so simple. And I tried it. And I found the more that I am grateful for something, the more items or successes that come into my world to be grateful for. And it just keeps going. And I keep being more grateful for everything. And I'm very appreciative that all these great things happen and that God has smiled on me and just more success comes and more success. And it really does happen. It really does crescendo. We've heard it. We've heard speakers talk about it. It is that powerful. So I just wanted to give that a little bit of a extra emphasis. Gratitude is extraordinary as a key to success. All
Absolutely.
right. So we're at the halfway point. We've done three to go. What's number 4?
I have one more thing to say about gratitude, then I'll tell you about the habit of number 4. The thing about gratitude, I think that you just made me think of, is that a lot of people will assume that just thinking of 10 things that went right that day, right before you go to bed, is sufficient. I cannot emphasize this enough. It is a lifestyle. Every moment of your day needs to be completely soaked in gratitude. So now that we've made that point, let me tell you about habit number 4, which is the habit of presence. Presence is being opted into right now. Whatever you're listening to right now, other than the sound of my voice and Tony's voice, put it down. If you're scrolling through Facebook while you're listening, put it down. Pay attention. What you actually attend to will blossom. So if you attend to learning, it will blossom. If you attend to watching your children play, your relationship with them will blossom. If you attend to your work will blossom. If you are so fragmented in your attention, and believe me, we are all digital people living in a digital world now, it's very easy for our attention to be fragmented. Do you have any idea how much we lose as a result of living in the past, the mistakes we made, living with our noses stuffed in our phones, or in the future worrying about tomorrow or excited about tomorrow? The only moment that's actually real is this one. That's it. Everything else is either a memory or a promise, and a vague one at that. Because tomorrow isn't even promised to us. It's a vague promise of like, yeah, probably, but not really, because people plan and God laughs. So the thing that we need to do is we need to be in the habit of living in our moments. When you're making dinner, put your damn phone down and, maybe put on some music and enjoy and sing along and have a great time. When your kids want to play with you, when you get home from school, don't be grumpy and take your day with you. That was the past. Take your shoes off and play with the Legos or whatever the kids want to do. When your wife is feeling spontaneous and she's like, hey, hot stuff, drop your briefcase and go get her. Like, be present, and enjoy it. That's the thing. Like, it has a lot it's funny. Habits 1 and 2 have a lot in common. 3 and 4 have a lot in common. And 5 and 6 have a lot in common. We'll get to those in a minute. But with the habit of presence, you're fully opted into this moment, appreciating how valuable and important it is. This is how memories are made. This is how we learn. This is how we grow. This is how we become the most of ourselves. And this is how we end up leading rich lives that when we're lying on our deathbeds at hopefully 90 plus years old, we're going to look back and go, damn, that was a really good life. I had fun versus, wow, I remember all that fun I had on Facebook. You want to live your life. And the more you're opted into truly living your life, the more you are going to, again, find joy in every corner, find success everywhere. You're going to have a blast because you're not being a grumpy, checked out weenie.
Being in the present is a present. And today, as you mentioned, with social media and everything else going on, our phone, our laptop, our computer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, there are so many distractions. How can we even stay in the present? There's just so much going on and so much that just grabs our attention. Has it gone worse over the years, or is that my imagination?
I, I think it's, well, I think honestly, your experience as an individual of your age and my experience of an individual of my age, I think they tend to correlate pretty strongly with what our parents experienced at the same ages, just probably different stuff. Because the headlines were just as bad then, they're just different now, right? And the distractions that we had then, are different now. Now we have digital things screaming for our attention, and that is, I think, the profound difference. It's not that the world is insane now and it never was. Hello, if you've ever picked up a history book, things have been pretty nuts basically for all of humanity. So the fact that we're living in this peaceful of a time is a bit of an anomaly. Human beings are not peaceful by default. We're just not. So, I mean, can you imagine the headlines like 500 years ago? Like, so and so stoned this other dude to death over this much. And can you imagine Facebook in the Middle Ages? Come on, it would have been insane. But the difference is now we have more access. That's the difference. The internet revolution has really changed our exposure to probably the same level of crap, right? So that's where we need to be ultra mindful, is that we are living in an unprecedented time where I actually don't think it's any worse than it ever was. In fact, in many ways, it's a lot better, but we are constantly bombarded with it. Whereas once upon a time, we were not. I mean, I was just talking to somebody earlier, like when I was a kid, Facebook, no, there's faces in a book. I'm confused. Like, I remember actually making real legit mud pies. I didn't have an iPad. I didn't even have a big wheel. I wanted a big wheel. I didn't have one. Like, I made mud pies. I played in the dirt. I caught caterpillars and frogs and stuff like that. And that was my childhood. Yeah, I think that was probably my dad's childhood too. So, children now have iPads and stuff like that. And it trains them to be hyper bombarded and under siege constantly to be anything but present.
Well said. And with that, let's go into the next habit.
Sure. So the next habit is the habit of goodness. This one really people struggle with, but not as much as acceptance once they realize how it's running rampant in their lives. So the habit of goodness is how you manage all the energy that you allow in. It's the news you watch, which we were just talking about. It's the social media you consume. It's the people that take too much from you. It's the uncle at the Thanksgiving dinner table who won't shut the hell up about the political candidate you can't stand. It's all the things, right? If you constantly allow those things in, what you're doing is you're inviting the world to abuse you with your consent. That's not okay. So the habit of goodness is to have good boundaries with yourself, with others, and with entities like Facebook, the news, bad stuff going in the world. Don't worry, if you don't watch the news, the bad stuff will still happen without you observing it. I promise you, and it always will. Believe me, Mark Zuckerberg will still be printing his own money if you don't log in today. Like, he'll be fine. And like, there's a lot of different things that you have to be very mindful of. Like, I like some different podcasts, for example, and I have to be extremely mindful of the energy of the host when I'm listening to the podcast. Because if their energy is like even like a little bit negative, or they're taking on like a slightly yelly tone, I'm like, nope, and just opt out. Because I just realized, like, and I know at this point, because I've developed the habit, like, ooh, that's toxic. That's going to mess with my energy, and I'm in a really good zone today. And nope, not worth it. I don't care what you have to say. The world is still a terrible place. I'll get back to it tomorrow. Bye-bye. But like, you have to have good boundaries with other people who wish to take advantage of you, like in business, people who wish to like take more from you than they're actually paying for. That's called scope creep. Remember that one, Tony? That's fun in the agency world. No? Yeah, that's when someone's like, "Oh, this project is $10,000, but we agree to this amount of work. Can you just do this? And can you just all your way into a $15,000 project you're getting paid $10,000 for?" That's called someone who's abusing you with your consent. So it's the way people speak to us. It's all these different things. So we need to be mindful of what we allow in. right down to the language, the books, the people, the colors in our home, the food we put in our bodies, everything. What are you ingesting through all of your senses? All of them, right? And recognizing that we are the product of what we allow in. You know how they say that you're the average of the people you spend the most time with? Well, that's true. If you're hanging around with a bunch of negative people who haven't achieved anything and just want to complain and just bitch about the news all the time, do you really think that these people are going to positively impact your life? Probably not. Are these people going to help you be wealthy and successful and, being a spiritually ascended guru? Probably not. But if you hang around with people who add good things to you like that, yeah, you're likely to actually achieve it.
It is very close to number two, acceptance, but if you work at it, it is very different. But at first, when it goes over the head, it's like, oh yeah, it's the same. But when you start really getting into it with the examples that you've mentioned, it really is very different, and it is a very key habit to get into. Very good on that one. I believe there's one more left. The drum roll, please.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that they have a lot in common. All of the habits actually have a lot of different things in common, and it's crazy when you think about it. This one's related to that one's related to the other one. It's just a big web, you know. It's fascinating the relationships between the two. But if you feel really good about yourself and you accept yourself, habit number two, you're going to allow a lot less toxic stuff in by default. Every habit supports the other one. Astute observation. Thank you for that. And here's the drum roll. The final habit is the habit of intention. That one is all about the energy you put out. So, what are you intending on creating today? Anything, or are you just a piece of tumbleweed just blowing in the wind? Are you just allowing the world to decide your mood for you? Are you going to wake up and see what you feel like doing that day? Or are you going to attack your day and decide, I'm going to have a great day? Now, this doesn't mean you have to work to attack your day. You could just decide what I like to do on Mondays, which is good morning. I'm making coffee and a delicious breakfast, and I'm going to go out in my garden and I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to come in the house dirty and happy. That's intention. It is what I am putting out for energy. It is also who I wish to be that day, how I wish to feel that day, and honestly, my attention towards my goals and the things I want in my life. And for me, my overall happiness, and I would argue for you too, is integral to my ability to be successful in whatever career endeavor I have. So if I don't garden and I don't make myself the fancy breakfast and I don't do all the things that make me happy, I am able to be so much less successful in everything I try to do commercially because I have not filled myself up with all the things, goodness, that make me happy because I didn't pay attention to that. Then when I need to output the energy, it's not there. So goodness and intention are related, presence and gratitude are related, and kindness and acceptance are related. They're very, very important. And it's three little interesting families that we've got together. But intention is really powerful. It also forces us to do things like having our vision boards and going to tour homes that we can't quite afford yet, but it inspires us because it's like, oh, I'm so close. And you get inspired. Like we have to get our enthusiasm and our joy back into our actions. And the more you act joyfully and act mindfully toward what you wish to achieve, be it a lovely garden, working out at the gym, or crushing a business goal, or going on to the Antarctic cruise you've always wanted to go on, whatever, you need intention to help you get there. And it's something you do every day, and it will help your life become exactly what you want.
I love intention. It's my favorite because your life, your business, your success, your bank account, it doesn't grow by itself unless maybe you're an heir to something. But aside from that, or being handed the silver spoon as a youngster or whenever, if you don't get up off that couch and go walk over and do whatever you're supposed to do, even if you're doing an online business and you're grabbing your laptop, it's not going to do it by itself. So you've got to intend to do it. That is maybe a small little gate, maybe a big gate for some, but once you go through that, these other habits, I see how they actually lead and bolster and help and assist that intention to be successful. And it will be more successful. It's like maybe putting a little bit of a rocket fuel on intention by having those other habits in place. You
Absolutely.
know, you're going, 60 miles an hour down the freeway, and now you put in a little intention, the foot on the accelerator, you can do 65, 70, whatever the speed limit is. I
Absolutely.
like that. I like intention. And I just wanted to take a quick moment because we're talking about habits, and I understand that you have a very unique habit that you do first thing in the morning and the last thing at night. Could you share that with us while we have a moment?
Sure. Well, my 6 habits are a big part of my day every day. So my day actually begins every night. I set my tone for the next day every evening before I go to bed. I say my prayers. I thank God for all my blessings, and I make sure that I am not done rolling with gratitude until my brain hurts from squeezing it dry. That is so important. I make sure that this is silly, but it's kind of cute. Um, I play with my cat every night before bed. She brings her little toy up on the bed. I'm fully present with her. I put my phone down, say my prayers, thank God for her and everybody I love and all the opportunities I've been given. And what happens is by setting the stage for a great day the night before, I get a good night's sleep. I sleep well. I sleep feeling blessed and joyful, and I don't toss and turn, and I don't have bags under my eyes the next day because I set the stage for my day the night before. Then when I wake up in the morning, this is actually it's a weird habit, but one that I would highly recommend. I do not get up by the alarm clock. It's more of a habit that I don't do. The habit is I wake up when I am done sleeping every day. That is it. I don't take meetings before 10 a.m. It just doesn't happen. I enjoy the process of making myself a nice iced Americano every single morning, and I enjoy it. Play with the other kitty because they're usually bugging me for breakfast, and I love it. Pat them, rub some bellies, and then I think about what I want to accomplish that day. And perhaps the most important thing that I reflect on every morning is who do I wish to be today and how do I wish to feel? I review my to-do list, pick out the most important stuff, and really just tap into who do I wish to be today and how do I wish to feel? Because ultimately, those are going to be my guideposts for the actual stuff that's on my list. So if I decide I want to be joyful today and I want to feel loved, because that's a nice thing to feel. Well, and I've got all my to-do list. This means I'm going to be shuffling some of my things around. I'm going to prioritize quality time with my husband, sneak in a phone call with my mom at lunchtime. And then what it does is because that's the way I want to feel today, it makes everything on my task list feel so darn joyful. And then starts all over, at night, wash my face, moisturize, do the thing, and say my prayers and do it all again.
Those are some of the best habits I've ever heard. I like those. I harmonize with a lot of those. Not the makeup part. I'm just being silly. I don't know why I got so Italian there, but I really like those habits a lot. I really do harmonize with a lot of those.
Awesome.
Great. Once again, we talked about the 6 habits of success with Laura DiBenedetto, and you can find her at lauradbenedetto.com. Laura, thank you so much for sharing with us today. Truly did enjoy them. It was great. And unfortunately, we have run out of time. I would love to keep talking about them. These are great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with me while I featured an elite entrepreneur who took her vision to reality. I'm quite motivated to go through this again. We discussed the 6 habits of success with Laura DiBenedetto. And by the way, make sure to check out her book, The 6 Habits. You'll find it on Amazon as well as through her website, lauradbenedetto.com, LauradIBenedetto.com. We went through the 6 habits, and I have a question for you. How many of these do you really have well in place? So well that you always do them instinctively all the time? And on the reverse, how many habits need some work? I'd like to know, so please tell me on Twitter or in the comments section if you're watching the video. My Twitter is at Tony, DUrso. And I appreciate your listening, and I look forward to your tuning in again next week. Please remember supporting the show with a nice review on Apple Podcasts. If you ever get a chance to hop on there, I would greatly appreciate this. And one last request, share this with a few friends to help them too. It's all about friends helping friends. All right. Use this and let's help you move on your journey to success. Thanks, and remember, just take action. Success awaits those who persevere and remain steadfast despite the odds. Sow good seeds, do good deeds, and join me on the next episode of The Tony DiUrso Show.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's edition of the Tony DiUrso Show with his key influencers. Be sure to tune in again next Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Influencers channel.